Now moving into the NFL from this past weekend, starting with an early morning game for us over in the United States. The Jags and the Bills played in London. The Jaguars actually playing their second straight game in London and winning their second straight game in London with a 25-20 victory over the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, because of the Toy Story broadcast against the Falcons, I'm not actually sure what they tried to make the stadium be in that one as far as who it was perceived to be a home game, but I think they kind of went out for the Bills on this one. The Jags have been historically pretty decent in London, and they keep that streak going, back-to-back wins. Maybe if you win over the Falcons isn't the most impressive thing, but they managed to stop the high-flying Josh Allen's Bills, who've beaten all their opponents except for the Jets, who they didn't beat, by 20. They bring that down, and they escape with a weird 25-20 score. So let's look at it on paper. Trevor Lawrence goes 25 for 37, 315 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, gives 31 rushing yards. Decent day at the office, other than he fumbled like 3 times. That game got a little ugly. Travis Etienne, though, has a monster day. He gets 136 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he got a 2-point conversion. Didn't have a bad day in the air either. Had a pretty good overall day. I mean, not the most impressive thing, but in the air as a running back, pretty good for him though. 48 yards, high total yards for him on that one, and of course the 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. Random 2-point conversion to start the game for the Jags, but good day for him. Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk also had pretty good days. Ridley gets 122 yards, Kirk gets 78, but Zay Jones is the Jags receiver who brings in the Lawrence touchdown. Despite this massive win over the Bills, and I say massive not in the score, but in being able to take down the Bills after what they've done the past 2 weeks, the Jags really wanted Buffalo to win this game. They really tried. They fumbled 4 times total. They lost 2 of them. 3 of the fumbles were Trevor. 2 of the lost fumbles were Trevor. But ironically, actually seal the win with Trayvon Walker recovering a Stephon Diggs fumble. Catches the pass on a drive where the Bills are really trying to make something work, and just get it knocked out of his hand as he kind of bobbles it on the catch, and game's over then. Darius Williams also had interception on Josh Allen. Josh loves to throw bombs down the field. This one was flying, but it just kind of went not quite long enough to get to Stephon, and ended up going right to Darius Williams. I wouldn't say right to him, like snatched it down from the air. A pretty impressive interception. That was also a bit of a momentum herder. For the Bills, it started really rough for them. Actually, this game started really rough for both teams. It was 11-7 at halftime, weird game. In the fourth quarter, they randomly decided, let's play football, and started scoring back-to-back. So randomly picked up there. Josh Allen went 27 for 40, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Led the Bills rushing game with just 14 yards. Got himself a touchdown on the ground, though. So tune into our Texas-Oklahoma video. We talked about how impressive it was for the Oklahoma quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, to lead in rushing with 113 yards. And I made a comparison. Usually when quarterbacks lead in rushing, might not be the best thing. Here's an example. Josh Allen's a good runner, but he leads the Bills in rushing and only gets 14 yards. Not a good day at the office for the running game for the Bills. And they weren't really in a position where they needed to abandon the run game the whole time. But I think against this Jags defense, they might have been better off trying to pass it, as they proved later on. James Cook got cooked and ended up only -4 rushing yards. He's had a really good season so far, but this one just didn't work out. Got stuffed up to -4 yards and then wasn't able to rack up much else after that. Had some production receiving 3 receptions for 25 yards, but couldn't get anything going on the ground, which has been unusual for him. He's had an issue this season where he's getting a lot of yards on the ground but no touchdown. This time, he just said, don't worry about either one of them. Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, though, did both have good days at the office. Both broke 100 yards. Stephon Diggs got 121. Gabe Davis actually gets 100 even, and they both scored a touchdown. Gabe Davis scores, it gets reversed, and then he immediately scores again anyway. So it made no difference on the flow of the game, really, other than just another weird flag in this game, which we will talk about. Tyrell Dodson and AJ Epineza are the 2 players who recovered the Jag fumbles. And the Bills actually recorded 5 sacks against the Jags, whereas the Jags got a solid 0. So the Jags really played a good game, came out with a good gritty win, but had a lot of things going on for them where they were kind of handing the flow of the game over to the Bills, and the Bills just weren't able to capitalize. And some of that also comes down to, on that Gabe Davis touchdown, they would then miss a 2-point conversion. Now they lose by 5, right? And it's because of a fumble at the end. But if they have that 2, you could potentially say that they're fighting for a field goal there. Maybe they play a little less scrambly, because they want to force overtime. Actually, I don't know if Josh Allen ever wants to go to overtime, but from a coaching standpoint, you have that opportunity there. But instead, they were down and needed to get down to score a touchdown, and either way, they fumbled, so it didn't work out. But this was a really gritty game. A lot of mistakes on display for both sides, but also just it was a really weird game as far as the flags. There was a lot of flags. I don't know. Maybe something in the London air. Either way, the Jags take this one. They improve to 3-2. The Bills fall to 3-2, and that may be interesting later on towards the end of the season.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game, for sure. So, like you mentioned, the Bills, they both teams started out sluggish, but the Bills, especially, I mean, literally the Bills' first four drives, they did absolutely nothing. At the very least, the Jaguars, they did go up 11 to nothing to start. They got the 2 point conversion because of a penalty. So the Bills, they came over on, I think they said on the broadcast Friday, and I mentioned it earlier. The Jaguars, they already played in London last week. Now, this is the first time that they've ever done like two games for one team back to back in London. But the Jaguars doing it is not that surprising, just because they've pretty much been London's team for the past 10 years. I think they played like every single year since 2013 in London. So it's not that surprising if they're going to do it. If any team was going to do it, it would be the Jaguars. And on the broadcast, Rich and Kurt, they were talking, maybe it's a slow start for the Bills because they came over, so close to the game start. Because I assume it was 5 o'clock or something. Not 5 o'clock, 2 o'clock or something, because it's 5 hours different. So, if they came over Friday morning, they don't have that much time in between. Whereas the Jaguars had already been there for, over a week. So maybe it did have something to do with it. Don't know for sure, but either way, the Bills came out very slow. I mean, literally every drive just amounted to nothing. Um, Jaguars defense played really well to start with, and especially considering that their run game was pretty much non-existent in the early parts of this game. Finishing Travis Etienne had a great run to get a touchdown. He overall had a good game, but early on, Jaguars didn't run the ball well, and it seemed like, watching that first half, I was thinking, all right, we're going to come in here. We're going to talk about, how the Bills basically never woke up in this one. And the Jaguars came out with a pretty gritty win, low scoring game. Until, as you mentioned it, Trevor Lawrence, he had a fumble at the end of the half, which they could have capitalized on that one because they were on the 12 of the Bills. Could have gotten a touchdown there or a field goal. After the Bills had just finally gone down and scored a touchdown themselves. So literally just like that, the momentum swung to the Bills. You're up 11-0, then 11-7. You could have gone up at least another score, a field goal at least. Instead, you fumble in the half. The Bills now, they feel like, even though they got mostly dominated, the offense pretty much did nothing. They feel pretty good going into the half. They also get the ball to start. The Jaguars, on the other hand, they should feel like they should be up a bit more. So that's, I think, kind of where things switched up a little bit. Still for a while, nothing too crazy happened on these first few drives. But again, another fumble, pretty deep in Bills territory. Trevor Lawrence, once again, ended the drive for them. But we were talking about this before the show started. Josh Allen, as many great plays as he makes, there are also those plays where he's like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it as far as possible, and it's going to be a pick, but whatever. Throws an interception. It was just not a good throw, man. Like, he just threw it up for Diggs, got picked off. They were lucky that it didn't. They called him down pretty early, but they were lucky they didn't go further. But the Jags were still able to go down the field. And this is where things kind of picked up. And you mentioned it, the penalties. And the NFL is getting a little ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's really always been like this where penalties happen in key moments. I mean, that's just kind of how the games end up. It's not too surprising to see, but the amount of penalties on this drive was ridiculous. And three straight plays at the end of the drive. So you have the roughing the passer on Josh Allen by Josh Allen. That one got them deep into Jags territory even further. They were on 18 on a third down. Then they went into the 10-yard line, within a 10-yard line. So 1st and 9, but essentially 1st and goal there. It's just like, okay, I don't really agree with that penalty. I don't think you really agreed with it either, but it
No.
happened. You get a touchdown by Gabe Davis. That gets brought back because of the pass interference. I still don't know what the heck they were trying to say was the penalty. I watched it like as many times as I could. I still don't get one. And then they end up getting another touchdown with Gabe Davis to basically nullify that one. And there was a penalty on that play as well. And it's like the refs got to relax. I mean, if there's a penalty, you can call the penalty, but it's just too much. I mean, when you're darn near affecting literally every other play, it's ridiculous. You had 8 penalties for the Jaguars that were enforced, 11 for the Bills that were enforced. Like, that's just too much. And when you have that many on one single drive like that, it's just a little bit ridiculous. I'm not telling them to swallow their whistle in key moments, but when it gets to be that ridiculous and you're affecting games here, then yeah, I have a problem with it. But either way, it didn't really affect the Jags because they were able to go down. Travis Etienne, again, I said he had that great rush, 35 yards, got down into the end zone. They put him up 25-13. And even though Buffalo scored like literally just like that off a couple of big plays, wasn't that much time left. And as you mentioned, they had that play at the end. Stephon Diggs think he was trying to lateral there, because there's only like 20 seconds left. Either way, end the game there. Jazz come out with a victory. And the biggest takeaway here is Jazz been playing some dirty football this year, not in a bad way, just some gritty games, close games. When we were expecting their offense to really kind of be the catalyst for this team, this year with all these weapons, I know they've had injuries, but we haven't seen that Jags offense yet. Maybe we'll see it a little bit later into the season, but they are able to win games against good teams. If they had played just a little bit better against the Chiefs, they could have won that game. So I think we're seeing a little bit more of what we expect from the Jags. I think the offense just has to get a bit better, not have the fumbles, obviously. I think that's something that's not going to happen every single game, but they got to clean that up with T-Law there. The Bills, on the flip side, we saw their offense for the past few weeks. They've been going crazy, especially against the Dolphins. This game, offense basically non-existent for half of it. But on the other side, they already had defensive injuries with Tre'Davious White. Von Miller just came back. But the Bills had like 6, 7 defenders go down in this game, I think.
Yeah.
It was insane. Like literally almost every drive, it seemed like we had somebody go down. I think Matt Milano was the biggest one. I think he's going to be out for the season, if I'm correct. So they got some issues defensively now with so many doggone injuries. So that's not going to help them later on. They're going to have to play at some point. They're going to play the Chiefs this season. Obviously, they're going to play the Eagles. They're going to play the Bengals, who seem like they're getting back up into things. They're going to play the Chargers and the Dolphins. You're going to need some help on defense against these guys. And assuming that your offense doesn't look like they did, they're going to be in some shootouts. So that's the main thing to look forward to, and the main thing going forward for the Bills. But Jaguars, they come out like they would gritty win, and you got to be impressed with them.
Yeah, and I mean, this just kind of puts things into interesting position here at week 4 as far as divisional standings go, right? Because the Bills did drop that first game against the Jets, so it puts their division in this really interesting area, right? Where you have Miami 4-1 after a win against the Giants, and then Buffalo 3-2. They dropped that Jets game. The Jets actually sitting right behind them with New England in last. It's a little interesting. New England's had a rough season. We don't really talk much about them.
Yeah.
But Buffalo, yeah, I mean, they've got to facing Miami now with such a banged up defense. And the next game being in Miami, obviously, way at the end of the season. That's going to be something to look out for. Buffalo has some teams coming up that could be a little bit of a problem when you get into shootout territory. They're going to face the Giants and Patriots next. Probably not much of a worry there. But the Bengals could be a problem. The Eagles and Chiefs and Cowboys in back-to-back weeks with a banged up defense, followed by the Chargers, then the Patriots, then the Dolphins. That could be a rough ending stretch of the season. for a banged up Bills defense. So we'll have to see how that goes. Jacksonville, they're in that really weird AFC South division that we talked about when we were previewing this game. Obviously, the Colts and Titans were destined. One of them was going to be 2-3, one of them was going to be 3-2, unless they tied, but they didn't. Houston dropped their game against the Falcons, so Jacksonville and the Colts now sit at the top 3-2, and they're actually going to play each other next. They'll have both of their season games out of the way because they opened up against each other. And the Jaguars have a potential for a lot of gritty games coming forward, right? Got a feisty Colts team, got the Saints team that's been a little hard to pin down, the Steelers, then the Niners, Titans, Texans. So both these teams are going to have interesting seasons. Maybe the Jags don't have as hard of an ending as the Bills do, right? Their last 3 games are going to be the Bucks, Panthers, and Titans. That's probably not going to be the hardest 3 compared to the Bills' final 3. But there's an interesting thing to look at where these two teams could go from here. Terrence and I obviously predicted that the Jags would lock up the AFC South. They started rough, starting 1-2, but they've improved to 3-2 since then, and they have a decently favorable schedule in front of them. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to take this gritty win, get these 2 London wins, put them behind them, get back and see if they can take control of that division. Colts also might be missing Anthony Richardson, so that's not going to be great either.